Welcome everyone, today we have a special guide for Diablo 4. As you guys can see behind me, I have listed a lot of special uniques for each of the class. You can see there's Necromancer, Sorcerer, Druid, Rogue, and also Barbarian. I also listed some interesting uniques that can be used for all of the classes. So this is universal uniques. So what I want to do in this video is, I want to filter out for you guys because you know there's a lot of uniques for each of the class. Notice Necromancer, there's a lot. If you type in Druid, there's over 20 uniques for any of the class, and it's gonna be a lot to go through, right? Now, one of the reasons I decided to make this video is that in order to plan for each of the classes for you guys and also for myself, I like to look at the end of the class and also the build first. So what I mean by that is, if you look at the best uniques for the class and also build a build around it, then we can look into the paragon levels that is over here. And after the paragons, we'll look into the skills. So this way you're building correctly. You're not going from the skills into paragons into uniques, but rather you're looking at what uniques makes a special build for you and go from there. And knowing that there's a lot of uniques for each of the class, I have only highlighted a few of the uniques that noticed to me. We know there's only 20 uniques, over 20 uniques for each of the class. So, and there's a lot of writing. So what I did is, I did a small summary for you guys, and you can still see there's a lot of writing for each of the uniques. Now, before we start, I want to let you guys know those uniques were from open beta, and it is likely some of them have changed or some of them might have changed. So what I mean by that is, back with the live stream after the open beta, the developers actually noticed that this particular item, the Harlequin's Crest, this is a special helmet for all of the classes. And this helmet went from +2 skill rank to all of the characters, to all the skills, to +4 skill rank. So this is a god tier item for any of the class. And during the recordings, this was still +2. So I did make a recording of this particular guide a little earlier, but I wanted to wait to see if there's any changes. And guess what? There is a change over here. And when you watch the video, guys, notice that this has changed. I'll read a special text for you guys as well. Now, similarly, one of the bigger questions I had from the viewers is, can you wear multiple uniques? Well, the answer I searched is that you cannot wear multiple uniques of the same name. Let's say if you're dual wielding the Butcher's Axe, you cannot have 2 of those on one character, but you can have multiple different uniques. And this is what I mentioned, and this is what I planned in the video. So here is a Reddit post, and this is a similar question that was asked by Grim over here. So can you have more than one unique? And I think one of the best answers was over here. A lot of players that played in the closed beta and a lot of players that tried the game, they are saying that yes, you can have multiple uniques, but not the unique of the same name. So what this means is, if you're able to find uniques, if you're really lucky right after World Tier 3, we'll talk about that very soon in a guide video. If you're able to find uniques in different slots of the character, likely they have different names, right? As long as they're not duplicated uniques, you can be using those. So this is why you can see on the actual video description, I was talking about, having different combinations of uniques. Because back then, a lot of viewers were not sure if you can combine uniques, because most of us, we initially thought maybe you can only have one unique for one character. But ideally, you can have multiple uniques of the different name for the characters. And in this video, we'll go through each of those special and also amazing uniques in more details regarding to the special effects and how they can change your entire build. We'll also talk about some of the builds I made previously which can work with those particular uniques. And of course, we'll go through the skill trees and also what are some of the amazing skills for different classes that can use those uniques. Now what I'll do is, I'll try to break this video into several parts. Each of the sections will be broken down by classes and also the related build. So make sure you check the timestamps if you're going for Necromancer, Sorcerers, or any of the classes. And of course, check the last part about the unique item that can work on most of the classes. So coming over to the first section of the uniques, we have the Necromancer. Let's focus on the unique effects first, then we talk about the build and also the positioning of the uniques. Because the positioning will affect a lot, and this is likely going to be amplifying and also affecting your build with offensive codexes that you can select after uniques. So the first one we have is going to be the Deathspear Pendulet. This is going to be a Blood Mage build for the Necromancer. And this allows Blood Surge to cast a minion nova around your minions, dealing percentage damage by X, which we don't know exactly how much. But the damage is increased per target by 10%, up to 50%. And imagine having 5, 6, or even 7 or 8 minions, and each of those casts a mini nova, which deals increased damage up to 50%. This is actually pretty incredible, right? So this allows you to be a Blood Mage Necromancer with minions. And what this can be quite effective is, because Blood Surge can also heal us kind of, and this can be really good in terms of PvP. So the ideal build for this one is going to be a Blood Mage for the Necromancer. Now the next item we have is going to be a Ring of Medin, I cannot pronounce names. So this is going to be ideal for the minion builds for the Necromancer. And over here you can see the effect. While you have 7 or more minions, you have a lucky hit chance to empower your minions by 10% chance, and this will cause them to have the next attack to explode in physical damage. So it is basically saying that if you're also casting spells and dealing damage, and you have 7 minions on the field, you can do additional AoE damage with your minions for all of them. And this is like giving your minion additional critical chance or additional bonus damage. Now, how would you have more than 7 minions is that you can have 3 skeleton warriors, 3 skeleton mages. So if you also get a perk for the skeletons, so let's come over to the Necromancer and let's come over to the Book of the Dead. You can see that we can also get 1 additional skirmisher. And if that is the case, all of a sudden you have 7 minions without the golem. So this can work without the golem. But if you're going for a minion build, ideally you will have the golem as well. So you consistently have about 7 minions or even 8 minions with the golem. And this allows you to, deal the most damage while you have most of your minions and deal additional damage. And those damage is likely going to do critical hits and also additional damage as well. Now the next 2 unique for the Necromancer are quite interesting. Those are the Hall of Blow and also the Black River. So the first item is going to be a glove. This allows us to, instead of detonating directly with a corpse explosion, you will summon void skeletons which will charge at random enemies and deal additional damage of the corpse explosion up to 40%, which is really good for the corpse build, right? And also we have the corpse explosion consume up to additional 4 corpses around the initial corpses and dealing additional damage and also have a large radius. This is also really good. It's a massive burst of damage that can be amplified by bonus damage, vulnerability, and also critical hits. So you can see those particular 2 items will go together very nicely. And finally for the Necromancer, we have the Deathless Visage. And this is going to be a helmet for the Bone Mage Necromancer. So here we can see the special effects. The Bone Spear of the Necromancer will leave behind echoes as it travels that explode to deal additional amount of damage. So exactly how much damage we're not sure, but for the Bone Necromancer, the Bone Spear is a prime source of damage for the core spell, and this helmet is going to be very interesting. But of course guys, keep in mind on the gear type over here. So some of the uniques will take a gear type, and if you already taken this helmet, then you might not be able to take one of the other good helmet that is available. Now coming over to the class of sources, you might have noticed guys, I do have less uniques for the sources compared to the Necromancer. This is not because the sources does not have that many, uniques. It does have teleportations, fireballs, but those particular uniques didn't really interest me. So this is the reason I want to make in a form of tier list form, because I'm filtering out the uniques that will be interesting to me if I'm playing the build or the class. So here we only have about 3 uniques for the sources, but of course you can combine with any of the additional items to make the sources strong. So the first one we have is an Astor's Overflowing Camel. So this is the Source's Amulet, and this is going to be the Electric Sources. So this is going to look into the Crackling Energy. So upon collecting Crackling Energy, there's a 10% chance to release a Lightning Nova, dealing X amount of lightning damage. So this basically allows us to do additional damage with Crackling Energy. And knowing that Lightning Electric Sources have so many Crackling Energies, this will almost happen every few seconds. And this can be very powerful, especially that the sources also have an amplifier for the lucky hit chance. Now the next 2 uniques will focus on the cold and also freeze sources. Now one of the items I wasn't sure whether this is universal for all the classes or for the sources only, so I included the first Frost Burn over here. This particular item seems to be working for most of the classes as well. The cold rogue can use this item, and any of the class that runs cold damage can use this item. So this will be combining with Ice Heart Bars and also Frost Burn. Sorry about the pronunciation guys. And of course this will be the pants and also the gloves. So for the gloves, let's go over this first. You have about 15 to 20% chance to hit enemies and freeze them for 2 seconds. So a lot of classes will do additional damage when you freeze enemies. For example, let me show you guys the rogue over here. So if you come over here, after making so many builds, I'm pretty good at the tree now. So if you come over to the rogue with a cold imbuement, you can see the rogue actually have a particular perk that allows you to do additional damage to frozen enemies and have a double bonus. The rogue can do 40% more damage to frozen enemies. So this is why I say this particular gloves can also fit on different classes other than the sources. So here I'm combining this with the sources, but later you can see you can fit into different classes. So now that we can freeze enemies, the mages also have this particular unique, which allows that when enemies die while frozen, you have 11 to 20% chance to unleash a Force Nova. And Force Nova will continue to freeze enemies, right? So this becomes non-stop freeze. And this can be very powerful as you deal more cold damage and freeze them and deal additional damage by killing the frozen enemies. Now moving over to the Druid. And one thing I forgot to mention to you guys, I will have the preparation of my previous guide for you guys to see different builds, including the minion builds for Necromancer, including the Necromancer AFK Thorn build, and also the Druid Companion build. A lot of builds will be listed in the description below, so make sure you guys, if you are wondering what are the builds is available with using Uniques, you can also have a look at some of our previous build in the beta. And this can give you a little preview of what might be happening if you go with a build with a companions, or maybe if you go with an earth build. And this can be quite interesting. Now, as for the companions for the Druid, we have the Storm Companion, and this is actually perfect for my companion build for the Druid. So the Necromancer also have a particular minion build, but it doesn't have a transformation like this one. So what you're going to see is your Wolf Companions, which we have 3, is now infused the power of the Storm. They will deal additional lightning damage and also gain the Storm Hell ability, which is pretty good, right? I'm very interested about this particular unique. And if I get this pens, I'm going with the Wolf's Companion for the Druid for sure. Now over here, we can see additional uniques for the Druid, including in the category of the Werebear and also the Werewolf. So I'll focus on 2 together. So the first one we're going to look at is going to be the Werebear. So the Vasilis Prayer plus the Insistible Fury will give us the Earth ability for the build for the Druid and also to stay in the Werebear form. So the first unique, this will turn our Earth spells into Werebear spells and fortify us for X amount of the spells. And now if we look into the second unique, this will turn Werebear form into the true form, and this will provide +2 ranks to all the Werebear spells. So notice what we're doing. We're literally turning Earth spells into Werebear spells with the first unique, and the second unique will turn ourselves with, into a Werebear with Fortify, and also this provides +2 skill ranks to all the Werebear spells, which will plus the 2 Werebear, which will +2 ranks to all the Earth spells. So those 2 are really combinations for your build if you're going with Werebear and also with Earth spells. Now if we come over to the second set of the uniques, we have the Tempest Roar and also the Mad Wolf's Glee. So this is going to be a Storm build for the Druid plus the Werewolf build. So here the first unique will turn our base Storm spells into Werewolf spells, which also have a lucky hit chance 15 to 25% to gain 10 Spirit, which is really good for the Druid. Now what we're going to do is we're going to have the true form for the Werewolf, and then we're going to add 2 ranks to the Werewolf spells. So now we're effectively adding 2 ranks to the Storm spells of the Druid. So notice those 2 particular uniques combined works very well for the Druid in the Werewolf form and also in the Werebear form. Now coming over to some of the uniques that stood out for me for the Rogue. So the first one is going to be the Word of Kahan, and this is going to be an amulet. And this will allow us to have a multiple imbuement build for the Rogue, which we do have a particular video to talk about this as well. So what this unique allows us to do is the Ring of Arrow ultimate ability will now be imbued with all of the imbuement at once. So if we come over to the particular skill tree for the Rogue, what I'm going to show you guys is the potential for this particular build for massive amount of damage. So coming over to the Rogue imbuements, you can see that the Shadow imbuement will increase the non-physical damage, which is elemental damage for the Rogue, including Shadow, Cold, and also Poison damage by 12%. And over here, your Cold imbuement skills will also increase damage dealt by 20% up to 40% if enemy is controlled and also frozen. And of course, you can provide yourself with some Poison imbuement for additional damage and also increase poison damage. Now if we come over to the Ring of Arrows, the Ring of Arrows itself will shoot arrows at enemies, and this will also increase the potency of your imbuement spells by 20%. You will also crowd control enemies by knocking them down for 3 seconds. So what this spell allows you to do is, it allows to imbue all the imbuement onto Ring of Arrows and deal tremendous damage with your ultimate as a rogue. So if you guys are interested about this particular build, come over to this video which I theory crafted the Cold Assassin Rogue and also the Shadow and also Cold Rogue using this particular unique. At the time of recording, I thought this is an aspect, but later on I realized this is actually a unique effect for the particular item. Now the next two unique for the rogue is quite interesting. The first one is going to be the Grasp of Shadows, which is going to be a gloves. This will focus on the rogue dealing vulnerable damage. So the effect of this particular gloves is that damaging vulnerable enemies with marksman or cutthroat skills have 20 to 30% chance to summon a shadow clone that mimics your attack. Now, in case you guys are wondering, the shadow clones are very good as a rogue's ultimate, and to be able to summon this multiple times with both of your range ability and also your close range melee ability, this is really good. So coming over to the rogue skill tree over here, what you're going to see is some of the skills including barrage. Notice the tag over there, it says core and also marksman. And some other skills like flurry and also twisting blade, which is a favorite rogue build, says cutthroat. So all of the rogue's melee and also range ability is either cutthroat or it is going to be marksman. And this particular amulet allows you to summon shadow clones when enemies are vulnerable, which makes the rogue's build so much more potent when enemies are more vulnerable. And we'll talk about this build in more detail, of course. And just to show you guys over here, if you go with Shadow Imbuement, you're almost guaranteed to have your vulnerability against enemies for 2 seconds, and this can be really good. Now finally, we have a unique bow for the rogue called the Wind Force Bow. So this is a bow that is focused on range build for the rogue. The special effect of this bow is that hits with this weapon have 10 to 20% chance to deal double damage and knock down the enemy. Now I do believe this double damage is on top of the critical damage, and the multiplier is even higher. So this gives you another multiplier for the double damage and even triple damage with critical hits. So this could be really good if you're going with a range build, and this will be the best in slot build for most of the build that go with barrage, with focus fire, and any of the range abilities with the rogue. This can be incredible. Now moving over to the Barbarian. I saved the best to last. I'm just joking. So the Barbarian has a few interesting builds, and most of those will go around Whirlwind and also Bleed, and those are the two builds I have tested in the beta. There is likely going to be other Barbarian builds as we discover them, so if you only see a few builds over here, don't be too worried guys, there will be more builds for the Uniques. So the first one we have is Gotha's Devastating Grips. So this unique is gonna be for the Whirlwind build for the Barbarian. So here the effect is Whirlwind will explode after it ends, dealing 50 to 70% of the total base damage dealt to surrounding enemies as fire damage. Now your Whirlwind will last for many seconds. So let's have a look at the Whirlwind over here. So coming over to Whirlwind. Whirlwind will last, I do believe Whirlwind can last up to 2 or 4 seconds at least. Yeah, Whirlwind can last at least 2 to 4 seconds. And what that means is the total damage that is dealt over the time to all the enemies will be used as a burst damage in the end as fire damage. And this can be a massive burst for the Whirlwind, which is what the Whirlwind build wants. So this is going to be a very interesting unique if you're going with the Whirlwind build. And there are also other Whirlwind aspects. So let's go with Whirlwind. And I'll show you guys over here. There is a lot of other offensive Whirlwind aspects, like leaving behind Dust Devil for additional damage, and also increase the Whirlwind chance by up to 40%. And up to 80% if this is on a double hand weapon. And you can also trigger the Summons of Ancient with the Whirlwind. So this is going to be quite interesting to combine for the Whirlwind build. Now the next two uniques we have is going to focus on the bleeding for the Barbarian. One is going to be called the Rage of Haragath. The second one is going to be called the Field of Crimson. So over here we have 20 to 40% to reduce cooldown of non-ultimate spells by about 1.5 seconds when inflicting bleeding onto elites. So this ideally will be the best item for farming elites and reducing your cooldowns with your shouts, with your mobilities, and also your ability with mastery spells. And when enemies are bleeding, you'll be doing more damage. Because if you come to the next item, so using this particular two-handed sword for the Field of Crimson, when you damage at least one enemy with Rapture, it creates a blood pool. And this inflicts bleeding onto enemies. Enemies standing in the pool also take increased bleeding damage by a percentage. So these two items combined will be ideal for the bleeding build if you go into Barbarian for the bleeding. Now lastly, we also have the Battle Trance Amulet for the Barbarian, and this will focus on building the Frenzy stacks. So for this particular unique, you'll increase your maximum Frenzy charge by 2, and then at maximum freezing, all the other spells of Barbarian gain about 10 to 20% additional attack speed, and with the amulet, those can be amplified even higher. So if we come over to the Barbarian, which we just here right now, perfect. So we can see Frenzy will increase attack speed by 20% up to 60%. With 2 more charges, this increases attack speed by 100%. And also, you gain damage reduction while having Frenzy. So having additional 2 more Frenzy stacks means you gain another 16% damage reduction. And this is going to be really good with this particular amulet. Now that we talk about a lot of the different classes and also build for the uniques, let's talk about some of the uniques that will work on most of the classes. And those were highly valued by me, especially for different builds. So make sure you have a look at the positioning of the items that is available for the uniques, and also what are the builds that can be used. And if you see the red ones, those are highlighted for some really good items or some really interesting items. So the first item we have over here is the Harlequin's Quest, and this is going to be the helmet. Now, I have talked about this helmet a few times in the past. This helmet will provide damage reduction, and also this provides +2 ranks to all your spells. And right away we can see this is going to be a really good helmet for any of the classes. Now the next unique of interest is going to be the Razor's Plate. So this is going to be a chest that provides us with a Thorn build. This chest is quite straightforward. It provides us with increased Thorn. And if you guys are wondering, we do have a Thorn Necromancer build, and we'll be looking into a Thorn Druid build, because if we come over to Druid, you can also see that Druid can provide a lot of more Thorns with a Prickling Skin with the D8 of the Spirit bonus. And of course, you have seen our Barbarian Thorns, so 3 different classes can make use of this particular chest if you're going for Thorns. Now we also have a very interesting boost over here with Issue's Heirloom. So this is a boost that provides us with bonus movement speed that can turn into critical chances. So the special effect of this boost is that your critical chances is increased by 20 to 25% of your movement speed bonus. Let's say if you're having a 50% movement speed bonus, and suddenly you're looking at about 12.5% bonus critical chance. So not only do you move faster, you also get more critical chance. And a lot of spells and a lot of passives in the skill tree do have this. So if we come over to the movement speed, you can see a lot of the passives and also different builds have increased movement speed for most of the classes. And this allows you to perk into utility and also more offense. And likely this will be a really good boost for fast moving classes like the Rogue. Now the next universal unique of interest will be a gloves. This is called the Fist of Fate. And this is going to be for any normal attacking build, which come back to the Rogue, right? So the effect of this one's quite interesting. Your attacks randomly deal 1% to 200 to 300% of the normal attack damage. So you have a wide range. If you roll anywhere above 200%, you're actually having an average chance of getting more normal attack damage. And if you roll from 1% to 300%, you are looking at an average of 150% normal attack damage. And this is incredibly interesting. I'm not going to say this is good, but for the rogue that can imbue their attacks with elemental damage, this can be incredibly interesting. And this of course is because of the randomness, right? Sometimes you can hit 1% and that would be really sad. Other times you hit 300%, and this is as strong as a core spell. Now coming over to the pens over here, we have Temerity, and this particular pens can be very good for healing, tanking, and also for PvP. Why is that? Is if we come over to the special effects, the healing effect you give to yourself, or the effects that heals you beyond 100% life, now grant you with a barrier for 50 up to 100% of your maximum life for 30 seconds. And if you're going for a healing build or any build that want to be durable, especially in PvP, if you're healing yourself, especially like the Blood Necromancer, or maybe with any of the passives, even the shouts from the Barbarian that can heal you, and also your party members, this can provide you with additional shield and to make you more durable. Now the Melted Heart of Shigurd is going to be a very interesting amulet of my choice, and this item will be really good for increasing your maximum resource. There's a lot of classes that can make use of this, so let's have a look at the effect first. So this increases your maximum resource by 100%, and this is on top of your existing increase of maximum resource. And in addition, when you take damage, you will draw resources for every 1% of life you would have lost. So not only this is utility and also offensive and also defensive, this also protects you. And this can be a really good hardcore item if you can always get a lot of resource. Now if we do come over here, and as for the Druid, one of the good things about having higher maximum resources, you have this particular perk called the Earthen Might, and that can restore all of your spirit. And this can be really good. As you proc this more often, you get more spirit, and then you double your resource cap, and this gives you more spirit as it restores them. And then this can be defensive because as you get more spirit back, you will be more defensive. So the Druid can become an unkillable machine with this particular item. Now we can also go with a Necromancer. So the Necromancer also have a similar perk over here. So which is going to be the Ossified Essence. Your bone skill deal 1% increased damage for each essence you have over 50. Necromancer have a lot of increased essence spells. We also have a video guide for this one if you guys want to have a look. But you can see right away, you easily get over 200 or 250 essence because of this. We can also be sacrificing our skeleton mages for 15% increased essence. And if I think this is correct, this particular unique would turn the 15 skeleton mage sacrifice into 30 maximum essence because of the 100% increase, which can be really good. Now coming over here, we also have the Grandfather two-handed sword. If you guys have heard of this weapon, this is similar to the particular helmet over here. This is a best-in slot for most of the classes while you're transitioning with the different builds. Now why is that? Is if we have a look at the special effects, this two-handed sword will increase your critical damage by 60 up to 100%. So this works for most of the build, right? Everyone wants to crit, everyone wants to deal more damage. On top of that, this particular item will also roll above average stats for the other substats of this weapon. And this weapon also provides you with increased health and also main stats. So this two-handed weapon itself is incredibly good. If you can find a max level 100 Grandfather in the Ancestral grade, this can be one of the best in slot for almost all of the classes until you get your perfect set. Now finally, I want to say save the best to last, but this ring is actually quite interesting. I'm saying this one is pretty bad, but let me know in the comments guys if you find a way to use this particular ring. So this particular ring will provide you with all stats, about 6 I believe, with intelligence, strength, dexterity, etc. And also this particular ring will have a special effect that have a percentage chance up to 100% to lose all your resources. Now why would you want this to happen? What's the point of this particular ring, right? I was looking through all the uniques, I was like, what does this mean? Like, how do I make a build of this? I mean, we don't want to lose all the resource. I can't think of a build that can make us lose resource and be beneficial about it. And the name of the ring also says this. So let me know in the comments guys, what do you think about this particular unique ring and how can we use this one for different classes or different builds? Now, if you guys haven't subscribed, it is a really good time to do so, because I'll be covering tons of Diablo 4 related topics and also videos and also guides. We'll be looking to the top meta builds, non-meta builds, leveling up, and also Paragon tricks. We're also looking to the latest events and also official updates, and also changes to different characters and also different builds in the game. So make sure you hit that subscribe button and also turn the notification on, because a lot of you who are watching the videos have not subscribed. You can see 80% of the viewers who are watching our videos have not subscribed, so make sure you subscribe to stay tuned for the latest update for Diablo 4.